Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you. On this video I will be talking about episode 3 of season 5 of The Handmaid's Tale. The episode is called Border. Full spoilers from the start of this review. So this feels a bit more like a filler episode, like just a bridge style episode after the dramatic 2-part opener to the season, and like slowly transitioning into what we're going to be doing moving forward. But there's some decent stuff in here, some stuff I'm not so keen on as well. But not a bad episode overall. I'll start with the June stuff because once again that's probably the least interesting for me. So we have the fallout and the response from the whole state funeral and Hannah being used as basically a prop, as like a message to June. And I'll give them a bit of credit here because at the start of the episode, June is like obsessing and really traumatized and upset about the thing. Like Serena has had her desired effect. But one thing which was bugging me for a while was the way she was obsessing about the way what Hannah was wearing, the colour, like purple it was, and trying to figure out what exactly that means. And at the time it bothered me because it just seemed like a small detail in the grand scheme. But later on you could see what they were getting at, because everything in Gilead, every colour scheme when it comes to like that sort of like gown or get up, that does have like a meaning. And so it pays it off quite well later on because they find out, June finds out through Nick, then it's purple means she's coming of age, she's becoming a woman, and she's being moved to a new school, and she's being like prepared to become a wife. Once again, still a very young girl. This is very like sinister and creepy, but it's the way Gilead works. And June is obviously really frustrated with this and really worried about her daughter. And this makes her resolve even more. It makes her even more determined that she's going to go back to Gilead and she's going to get Hannah, which obviously is going to be the end goal of this season. But just to like talk about the phone conversation with Nick, because I'm a little frustrated that they're going back to the Nick June stuff. It felt like they resolved that in quite a good way, and that it's just spinning its wheels by going back to it. Now, the phone call itself is actually quite a good scene, and it's quite a moving scene, and they catch up on their own lives. Like Nick reveals that he's now married. Because another thing he says to June is about, don't worry, Hannah, she'll be fine because she's tough, and she's also been put with a good family. They'll look after her, which obviously that's not going to put June's mind at rest, but it's just something he says. But the phone call itself, it's quite a good scene, and it is quite well played and quite moving. It's just a little bit frustrating, and we have to go back to Nick and June again, but they use it quite well because it's a way for her to get information. He's like an inside guy, and obviously he's one of the more sympathetic commanders, so he like knows about this stuff. But yeah, June finds out, then that's what they're planning now for Hannah, and that makes her resolve even more. So the episode's called Border because Moira, rather sloppily, I'll say, lets slip that there's this group of like refugees who work at the border, and they set up like almost like a foundation or like some sort of a charity, I want to say, where they arrange to go into Gilead, and they go undercover. They send like secret agents, almost like that's the equivalent. And those secret agents try and rescue people. So Moira takes her down, and the first girl she meets is someone who she actually helped, one of the people who benefited from the exchange when they exchanged the refugees for Fred. So this girl is obviously knows about June cabin, and they've got this whole setup where they've got a wall of like photos of like victims or handmaids, their family, and it does almost function like a bit of a charity. That's the way it's presented in the episode, because as well as going into Gilead, they say they've got like these in-between spots which aren't really covered by the law, so they can, you know, find ways in across the border. But also it says that they support the families and stuff. And this stuff, again, I quite like it. It's not too bad because it makes sense, and it's like building a bit more mythology. But there is a scene later on which gets a bit over the top and melodramatic. Starts screaming and shouting, and that scene was a weaker scene. But this stuff I actually don't mind too much. But once again, it feels like we're doing a certain amount of plotting because we can't just have June go in there. So I'll go back to June in a minute once I've talked about Serena. Once again, her stuff with Lawrence and some of the other stuff with the Gilead side of thing, it's the highlight of the episode. I think Lawrence is once again on very good form. I love his line about the dynamic duo, how he refers to Serena and Mark when they come for like dinner with like the commanders, and it's like the big scene of the episode for Serena. It's this really awkward sort of like dinner scene. Lawrence invites her, and he's sort of on her side now, partly because she tried to blackmail him in the last episode, but we do see some like real human moments between them where there is this respect, and they do seem to on some level like each other and support each other. They stand up for each other. So there's this dinner, Nick and his new wife is there, and it's just this awkward like conversation with these pauses, because you've got this character of Mackenzie who's I think it's the handmaid who, or the commander who Hannah would be going to. So I have to disagree with Nick when he says to June later, then it's a good family and Hannah will be safe with them, because Mackenzie, from the off, you can just tell is a slimy piece of shit, and the actor is good. I've seen that actor somewhere before, but he's really effective in the scene. But yeah, you're having this dinner conversation, and first of all, the first sign then there's sort of respect and care with Serena and Lawrence is then the conversation turns to Lawrence being a widow himself, and that he should maybe look for another wife. And Lawrence quite diplomatically just says he's not interested in marrying again. And Mackenzie has this line about, then, like, I'm not sure that's a proper future then for a commander in Gilead. And Serena, you actually see changes the subject in the scene, and I read that as her taking the heat off Lawrence a bit. She does say to Lawrence, Mackenzie's right, you can't really have a future in Gilead as a man without being married. With little hints and that then there is a respect between these two characters, and that, you know, Serena's looking out for him the way he's sort of looking out for her. Find a position for her, a new political position, which is going to be her being placed in Canada and her becoming like a go-to between Gilead and Canada. But ultimately, because of her being a widowed and everything, she's not welcome. She's not part of the main setup in Gilead anymore. Interesting new direction for Serena and the character, and obviously it's a plot reason to get her to Canada where she's gonna have some conflict with June. But yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff overall. And so the way the conversation starts going at dinner is that Serena almost wants revenge for what June did, and she starts planting the seeds about that wasn't right, she's an evil person, she's dangerous, she won't and she's doing it in a very subtle way, and you can see that Mackenzie, who not surprisingly has probably these sorts of views and isn't the most like moral upstanding person, he's starting to have his sort of mind turned a little bit, and it's just this dramatic thing in the episode where up to a point Serena thinks that she's starting to get through and that they might just welcome her back with open arms, but her reality is sort of shattered later in the episode. But I do really like the scene with Lawrence and Serena when they're having this frank conversation and this chat about their own positions in Gilead, and they both air their sort of concerns for each other. And I also like it because Serena does concede some of the faults about Fred and about how he probably wouldn't be the best man to like raise her baby, her new baby, because that's another reason why she's been sort of shut out of all this, is because she is with child as well, and she's not married, and some of the stigma from Fred and what have you. So yeah, the way it goes, it is a little bit icky because it seems as though Serena wants a new husband, like she just wants it as a way to survive really, and to regain some of her power. So she actually comes on to Mark later on in the hotel room, which I had a feeling they were going that way, but she tries to seduce him, and instantly my mind jumped to she wants him to be a partner for her. Although I don't know how that would work exactly, because he's really technically Canadian and is based in Canada. The politics of the whole thing, he's not really a welcome guest in Gilead. It's only because he's with Serena, and when they're having their lunch thing, he's sort of like shut off in another room. But so I don't know how that would work. A new sort of husband for her and for her child as someone respectable to help raise it. That's certainly the way it played. And then I even got a hint that she might have had those sort of ideas for her and Lawrence, because they're both like widowed. Lawrence says it, I think you got the wrong idea about what I could like do for you. And I think that might have been partly to do with him just securing her place on like the board sort of thing, and or as part of the Gilead setup again. And hears this and she goes crazy, she goes nuts, and once again the end of the episode I'm not so keen on. I think it's just a little bit cringe, a little bit toe curling, because she drives in, and one of the things they've done with Serena is because she's a widowed and everything, then even in Canada there's been some sympathy for her, and there has been like this sort of this vigil and people supporting her. The end of the episode is then out of nowhere, because Serena's in the limousine, and out of nowhere June slams her hands against the window. I don't know quite how she found it out where she was, but like they mentioned something to do with a secret airport and she's coming in privately. So I guess they've got certain resources, they could have found out. But yeah, out of nowhere she slams her hands to the window, puts her face, and she just screams, "Don't come near Hannah again." And she does it a second time, "Don't come near Hannah again." And Serena's obviously all flustered and freaked out, and she tells the driver, "Drive on, drive on." But yeah, I don't like that scene. Once again, it feels a little bit like something out of an action movie, or just something a little bit more macho, and I don't know, just like they're just going for the big statement without it really justifying it. It just felt a little bit silly for me. And as we've gone on in the show, I think some of the stuff with June has tipped over into feeling a bit silly and melodramatic. Janine's in a hospital, as is Esther. She poisoned both of them, and for a while it's touch and go, but by the end of the episode it looks like Janine might just pull through. And I don't like this scene either because it's just, again, very over the top and melodramatic. So Aunt Lydia slaps Esther in her bed because she's obviously pissed at her. She then goes over to Janine and she starts preaching to God. And once again, religion is a big theme in this show. So this stuff makes sense because she is so deeply religious, but it just played as really hammy and silly to me, her kind of pleading with God not to take her, not to punish her in this way. And we get a scene where, like, the mother of the baby who Janine produced, she comes and she's got the baby with her, and they, like, go to Janine's bedside, and that's alright, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, the stuff with Aunt Lydia, I just, even though I love that actress, I just found that really annoying and over the top. So once again, it's a bit of a mixed episode, but not too bad for a filler episode. So that's The Handmaid's Tale. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media, and look out for more TV reviews, more newer shows, and some older shows as well. Me and Rachel are currently doing Buffy, so we're doing season 1 review videos. You can expect the season 2 review video coming soon, so look out for more on the channel, but I'll be back soon. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.